på sosiale medier I dag, går ofte kvalitetsinnhold ubemerket. På Den.Social blir brukere betalt for å skape, evaluere og sørge for kvalitetsinnhold. Innholdsskapere blir belønnet basert på engasjementet og rekkevidden innlegget eller kommentaren deres får. Evaluering av innhold blir belønnet basert på hastighet og presisjon I forhold til hva som kommer til å trende og gå viralt. Eiere av fellesskap blir belønnet basert på engasjementet I sitt fellesskap. På Den.Social blir kvalitetsinnhold belønnet.
Hello, denizens. Welcome to the DENDAO governance call for June 16th, 2022. I am Distant, or Dave, and I'm here with Joe Dragon, as usual. We're going to go over some of the things that have been happening since the last call and talk about what's coming up in the very near future. As always, there is a link to join the call. If you go into the DENDAO layer on Den, you'll see at the top of the agenda right here, there is a link to join this StreamYard link. That'll put you into a lobby where you can send us a private chat message, let us know what you're here to talk about or that you're ready to come on with your mic set up and all that. And you can do it open to anybody who would like to discuss with us. So how's it going, Joe? How you doing?
Good. Pretty just busy, but pretty good.
Yeah, same. Absolutely. I told you this before, but great show earlier. We have, we always come into this a couple of hours or after our World Blockchain Roundtable Thursday show, and we had a fire discussion today on that. So that's DIN related because there's the WBRT. I always get the letters mixed up. Layer over there. So go help us out with voting on new topics. On the agenda today for this, we've got, if you've noticed, the embargo on not safe for work content, or layers rather, has been lifted. So that's something to talk about. We have a vote on the next development priorities. That came pretty quick, so we'll talk about that. We have July 2022 LCP commitment phase. That is not true. That is the June one. So go vote on the layers that you want to exist. So we'll talk about that. And then, of course, community input and feedback, and that's open to all. Let me check the comments real quick. Looks like Hyperion Frequency is here. Hello, and thank you for your input on the most recent priorities vote as well. I've seen in the reply section there's some good conversation about how to, around the messaging and around the activity and the incentives and things like that on Den. Really valuable brain right there.
Yeah, we should cover that one even because it'll be worth.
Yes, in fact, I have. Yeah, I've got the DENDAO vote pulled up in a tab, so we'll check that out while we're looking at that.
Cool.
All right, so back to the top. Let's start with the removal of. Well, these are both kind of together, right? So the next development priorities vote is in because of how quickly the devs were able to implement the most recent one. So if you remember, there is, we're going to just jumble these all together. If you remember, over in the LCP, there's a layer that was proposed that is not eligible to be created at this time, right? And that's simply because the tooling didn't exist for Den's community to properly manage that type of layer. Now, since we voted in what is tentatively been called smart tags, this is the first integration of smart contracts, which was the feature that was voted in. It's the first integration with smart contracts, kind of lays out a little bit of a foundation for that. And now we have some tags that actually do stuff instead of just displaying themselves as a category. So we'll look at that. So because that exists, though, we're able to lift the embargo on the not safe for work layers. That also went up to a DENDAO vote. And maybe unsurprisingly, it was really quickly voted in. Like the decision came in fast. So people really wanted that, I guess. So here we are. So let's talk about how that works and demo that, I guess, would be the first appropriate thing to do, right? To show off some of the tags.
Right.
I started, these are all just example posts, but I have our community layer over in the Gainesville layer that I put in. You can see I put some test posts in here. This one was marked initially as you can see, it shows up as normal. You can see the post, you can see the photos that are in it, the pictures that are posted, as well as the words. But if you notice, it's marked not safe for work, but it has been voted against, which means I marked it as not safe for work, but the community came in and evaluated it and said, no, that's incorrectly tagged. And so it's not censored. If we scroll down, past that, okay, now we see some blurred content. So this is an example of content that is tagged not safe for work, NSFW. And if you notice, importantly, you can still read that I wrote testing, right? The words themselves are still there, but the image, the image is blurred out because this is something that is presumably something that is not appropriate to view while you're browsing on your lunch break in a workplace setting or something like that, right? Now, if you want to evaluate that tag, you can still see it. You can click warning, this content is tagged as NSFW, click to evaluate, and you can have your own judgment, right? So you click that and it shows what you weren't supposed to see. And then you can vote on that. So right now, I'm not sure how many votes are in here right now, but let me try voting this not safe for work tag down. And Joe, if you're in here, maybe you can do the same, because like I said, I don't know how many it's going to take to flip it, but if enough people come in to change the consensus on this tag, it'll actually go back and it'll recover itself again. So that's the not safe for work. It's different than spam, right? The spam tag is the second of the three that we have. And if you notice, there's not a quorum on this, but there is more people who say it is spam than is not. So it is going to remain blurred out, right? And if you notice on this one, the reason it's different is the words themselves are also blurred out. The idea here is, and I think I have a very good example. Hold on. Let me scroll down. Yes. This one I wrote spam, 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 you know. So yeah, we don't care about all that. So your spam tag, if I click this, it'll reveal both the image and the words, right? And then you can decide for yourself if that's spam or not, and you can vote, have your say, right? So I'm going to pretend, well, actually, yeah, I'm going to vote
down. A post or reply without an image that ends up being tagged as NSFW will have no effect, no visible effect.
Very good point. Very good point.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we're making an assumption there that although it might not be an absolute, so it might be something that we need to adjust. But there might be things that are not safe for work that are not at all imagery, right? So
right, yeah, it depends. The idea is that, like, purely not safe for work. Like if someone's walking behind you and you're reading text, they're not, unless they're reading over your shoulder, they're not going to read what you're reading,
right?
Or unless somebody has, somebody cartoonifies with ASCII art or something, like, okay, but that's still a different thing. Okay, haha, you made that look like something inappropriate, LOL. But this is, this is more for like, that's not an image you want to show your boss, or admit that you were looking at on company time anyway.
Right.
And right now, abuse works very much similarly to spam, where it'll also blur out the words themselves.
Right.
Okay. So let me refresh. I voted on a couple of them. Let me vote this down, and I'll vote this down too.
Yep. And I have it open if you need me to. Right.
Okay. So let me refresh, and some of those should have changed by now. I didn't vote on the top one or the second one, so that'll still be the same. So let me just go down here, and there we go.
Still spam. Okay.
So this one, if you remember, when I first posted it, I had to click to evaluate this, and then once I did, I said no, that's not an appropriate tag. So I voted down on the not safe for work tag.
And it is red now.
It is red now, right? So that means that tag is incorrect. It's the consensus is that's not the right tag for this, and because of that, the blurring automatically didn't blur, right? It just showed up. It rendered like any other content. So the cool thing there is that, and the important thing there is that it gives layers the ability to self-moderate on content more efficiently, and without an overlord, presumably.
Right. So, and something to note there, that the sequence of events would be as follows. Let's say somebody posts this, and somebody doesn't like Decent Gains, so they say, "Hey, I'm gonna mark this NSFW so that not as many people see it." it's a potential attack, right? If it's an inappropriate, now maybe they think this is inappropriate because Marvel movies suck, right? So maybe that would be true here. But either way, they would mark it NSFW. The second person would come in and click on that button because it would be blurred. It'd be immediately blurred because we have 100% of the single vote saying it's not safe for work. So now Dave comes in and clicks on it. It's like, well, let me see it. And it's obviously not incorrect tag. So you vote it down. Now it's 50-50. So one for the tag, one against the tag, and in a pure 50% consensus, it will still hide it because it doesn't know. So now the third person comes in and they tag they say this is not an appropriate tag. Also, now you have 2/3. It essentially would be red, and it would now show because we think the consensus. Now, over time, let's say those three people were all in the same room and say, "Oh, this isn't. We're going to make this not safe for work." They're colluding. Then over time, the consensus can move. It can move multiple times between hidden and not and shown. And we think, we don't know this because we've already had a couple of annoyances where people have purposely tagged some of the Den content even as not safe for work or abusive or something else. And so we want people to go and evaluate these, especially, but in time, once we have enough data, we could come back and ask the DAO, hey, maybe we want to integrate a tagging rep essentially, so that if you're consistently, especially around the tags that have smart tags, maybe, but if you're consistently going against consensus, that you would have a rep calculated that would essentially mean that even when you say, hey, that's not safe for work, it doesn't hide it yet because we know that you're about right 10% of the time or something, right?
Right, and that's very much in line with the reputation systems that we already have. That that are effective if they're used. I mean, I've got a couple of layers where I don't use them, and I've seen them used in other layers to pretty good effect. So I think the takeaway for me there is that with this feature, with great power comes great responsibility, that kind of thing. This feature brings in something that Hyperion Frequency was discussing a little bit in the most recent priorities vote in the reply section there. Just basically about spurring participation, because this is one of those things where more and more it relies on community involvement and participation to make it run smoothly. So and then the other thing that Joe said that I wanted to point out is that everything, whether or not we have a feature implemented yet or not, for example, the reputation system, right? Economic reputation, tagging reputation, fill in the blank reputation, all of that data is on chain already. So we can always implement something that if we think that there are problems that aren't addressed, we can implement things that retroactively use on-chain data if we feel like there's a necessity to do that. So that's we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But I just wanted to say, evaluate stuff and start paying attention to those tags, because you'll start seeing blurred out stuff, and you'll want to know if that's true or not, and all that jazz. Okay, so I'm gonna bring Adam. Nope, I thought Adam came back in.
Oh, real quick, something else directly with the smart tags that was also thrown in just yesterday, and it's already live as well, but we can't test yet, is the ability for a layer which is intending to provide, maybe age restricted content, like that one in particular, that's going to be primarily not safe for work content, that we can put an acknowledgement that you're over 18, so so the Den is
right, which is the other part of why this was marked as ineligible, because we didn't have the system for challenging someone upon like subscribing to a layer, and that, since that's in the description of this proposal, we had to do that too before it could be supported. So we have that working on an internal private testing layer. It hasn't been tested out on a public layer yet, but we can test it in dev, and it seems like it works as expected. So yeah, with that said, I had a question for you, Joe.
Yeah.
It came up a little bit on coffee. Since I'm unclear, because since the vote to lift the embargo on it technically passed after the beginning of the commitment phase for this LCP, do we have a consensus on whether or not this is eligible to be created in June, or if it becomes created eligible in the next round?
Well,
see what I mean?
That's a good question. My thought, based upon what we had said when we first posted that we couldn't create that yet, was that it could have still won, right? That and if it would have
Correct.
won, then it would have been sitting there until we had the stuff there to open it up. So I would assume if it were to win this time, and that all of that implementation is there, that you'd be able to create it. So
okay, that's actually that's like a both answer, which I like, because it's if it wins, then we'll double check and make sure everything's right for it. And if we need a minute, then we'll wait.
Yeah.
But it can still be like, even if we wait, that doesn't mean it is at the next round. It could just wait for a week or something.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right. That's a good answer. Thank you. Good answer, Joe. Cool. So here's that question. And then,
awesome.
So let's see. Development priorities. Let's look at that. We have some votes in already. Pretty sure I voted during, at least with this account or with one of my accounts, because I remember doing it as a group activity on Coffee.
Right.
So yeah, what's next? We've got Anon, we've got internal market, we've got denizen flags and denizen at references and notification updates. Those are 3 different ones I just rattled off. We've got the ability to pull a proof report and show consensus so people can see what happened there after it's been resolved. Layer metrics and leaderboard, which is kind of this really cool, I don't know. I'm always excited about that one, but I feel like we need more stuff to show there. So other tools actually lead into like how many, great example, cross-posting. If we have cross-posting, we can show most like layers, for example, that are most cross-posted between because they're related. So you can have like most sisterly layers based on cross-posting or something like that. But most, bookmarks, same thing. Without revealing who bookmarked it, you could have a metric on the leaderboard that says most bookmarked content. What's the most highly bookmarked? What does everybody want to keep referencing back to? And so it should be like the most useful ones.
It would be interesting to see what are the, like, you could even potentially have a dynamic visualization of which layers were most similar, because you could also check on subscriber base that.
Oh, that's true.
Like, we have a good overlap of subscribers. We have a lot of cross posting.
That's like with I don't know, Amazon, I guess. People who bought this item also bought these items, that kind of thing.
But I will say, I think that the layer metrics and leaderboard stuff is at least parts of that are required for the market features.
Because where are you going to put the market, and how are you going to show the
relative, and the value? The fact that the design is based upon those layer metrics. How much matter does this layer produce every month, right? It's almost like you would, I would want to be able to look at, because right now, I mean, they're all unchained, but we have never had the chance to put the visualization behind, all of the activity. So it's
right. Just because it's all on chain doesn't mean you don't have to come up with a scheme for packaging that data into something that you can then display, that kind of thing, or where to pull the data points from and how to quantify.
And we're already using a toolkit for the metrics, like say what's already in the payouts, and we need to go and add some things to that as well.
In addition to that, you have the stuff about for example, the section that is behavioral owner based, right? That same metric can apply to other measurements. That's literally the emission rate of your lot. And because they're different between layers, one lot is not one lot. It's it's a non-fungible. So
Yeah.
then what you can do is say, okay, well, how do you measure the relative value of a lot? Measure how much matter it produces. So that's what we do there. And that can be used other places as well.
Right.
So translation features, by the way, that's a big ask, but we'd figure it out. There's layer poll, which is non-lot voting. Right now, you can do an arbitrary one, which in fact, that's what this is a MISC like GI proposal in the DENDAO layer. And with that, you can add up to 13 options and people can vote on it, but only people who hold lot can vote on that.
Yeah.
So this will be a way to have a poll that's just a generalized poll that is maybe even embedded, the same way in images so that it shows up as, a thing.
Right.
I don't know, something.
Close to what Twitter does, right?
Yeah. So anybody could vote on that.
Yeah.
And then process automation for LCP, which should be relatively logically straightforward, but that's some work as well.
Yep.
Like you can write it down on paper, but
do we want to say like what angles? You've already voted, maybe.
I think, yeah. Let me see if I voted on this account or not. Hold on. No, I have not. No, I have not.
Nothing black. Wait, no, isn't there? Oh, it's blue. It would be blue. Never mind.
Would be. Wait, no. Blue would.
Blue is what your vote is. Like you could test.
Okay. Yeah.
Right now.
So blue is what. Here's what I found. Blue is what your vote is, I think, until it resolves, and then blue is the totals. At least I saw that once.
Highest. That might be. We need to.
I'll have to go back and check.
That's a good question.
Because I remember on one of them, it was blue as if I had voted on it or something, but it was
there is a check mark where you voted at least.
Yes.
I know that stays.
Yes,
so.
That is definite. Like if I were to vote on internal market features, it turns blue.
I wonder if it should be green. Maybe it should have the mat because it does have the mallet over there on the. If there is a winner in this one, I don't know if it would resolve and say this is the winner because it's a large field. I don't think it can. I don't think the vote would be high enough. Maybe, I don't know. I can't remember. We'll have to look. So,
well, you're right about the blue, right? If I change, yeah, the blue shows me, what. So the reason, and also this is really good to point out too. The reason that this is my business account, as the reason I have two accounts, but the reason this account has such a substantial portion of the creator vote is because it's one of the accounts that are providing liquidity over in Uniswap. And those liquidity positions account for half of the creator vote and half of the owner vote. So you could say that account, the liquidity itself, if you have liquidity with both Lore, which is, excuse me, the owner one, and Matter, that accounts for an entire vote. You could actually make these 4 votes if you wanted to and say, okay, liquidity, behavior, actually, that's still 3 votes because then behavior is 1 vote. But you get the idea. So I guess that's an invitation to go put some liquidity in and get more of a governance say in what we're doing here, right? So if you feel strongly enough about the direction, like honestly, I'm probably going to either vote for anonymous posting for a couple of reasons. One, because I think it piggybacks off of what we just did nicely, and also it adds more interesting things to the way lot pays out, depending on which layer it is, and it is another opportunity to do what we just did, which was a relatively quick turnaround on a feature, because I don't think it would take as long as some of the other ones. So those are some of kind of like my thinking, right, on that. Your priorities may be different. So the invitation though is to go put in some liquidity, and then you will be able to
or do
sway that vote more,
or do some things that get you behavioral, which is, if you don't have the liquidity, if you don't have the Ethereum to throw in, you can just come in and make a lot of really good posts. And
that is a very good point, because that was definitely geared to people who have the liquidity to put it in the first place, obviously.
Right. And the point you mentioned, we should go into a tiny bit that not only is the anonymous, so the general design is that when you create a layer, or if you already have a layer, the default will be that it won't allow anonymous posting. Right. We think that that's kind of the design.
I think it should be, and that should be expected, that you get the layer is a normal layer, like anything else, like the whole time. Yeah. And then you can opt into stuff.
And I don't know whether it'll be a three-way
switch
position button, or if it'll be 2 switches, but it would be that you could allow anonymous or you can require anonymous. So it would essentially be you're fully identified as it is today, or you allow anonymous posts mixed in with regular posts and comments too, replies too. Or you require the entire layer to be anonymous only. And the reasoning is, well, first of all, a lot of people, especially around some subjects, are more likely to state their real beliefs, what they really think if it is anonymous, right? That's obvious. And so you tend to get more honest, although it can be much harsher content. So you might not want that, but you might only want that. And on the side where the payouts that you were talking about, the fact that the system does not know who made that post, and it doesn't want to, when later, when that part of the chain is exposed, for people to know, oh, I can see this account made that post, because they're the ones that, you wanted to avoid all of that. So it's actually a really good, I think, economic design to say that the all rewards that would typically go to content for an anonymous piece of content will instead go directly to the layer. So right now the layer gets like what? It depends if it's a post or reply and everything else, but the layer itself, the people who own the lot, will get it's either 5, 7, something small percentage of every single energy vote that comes in. They get rewarded for that and credited for it, and they mine matter based on that. And if instead that content is 100%, like all of the value of any energy going in will go to the layer, then that lot is going to be more efficient one way or another. Whether it's more valuable is a different question.
That depends
especially
on
if you listen to the talk today
or not.
Yeah.
That's the other side of that, is managing it to the point where people want to use it.
Yeah. So,
but if you're like a newspaper and you want to have an open public forum that is also like, hey, this is this is a package drop for anybody who wants to let us know, as a whistleblower, as somebody who wants to pitch us a story, but they don't want to let somebody know that that's their neighbor, to start a fight or something. There's plenty of use cases for it. And like you said, you have the scope narrowed when you can, if everybody has to have some sort of ID, even if it's pseudonymous, that that rep follows that ID.
Yeah.
You broaden the scope to allow more honest opinion. You also broaden the scope to allow more, trolling, I guess, too. But at least the troller won't get rewarded for it. And at the very least, whatever rewards they may have gotten from that
now would
be given to the owners in the community.
that you're going to get layer proposals that would tend to be more dramatic subjects, anonymous posts only, and you want to own as much as possible because there's going to be so much drama flying back and forth there.
Sure.
Very valuable layers, right?
Well, that's like the eroticism layer. It's not that I want that, but of course I want to have a say in that. So I'm going to have some lot in there, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or the firearms layer, like I'm not into firearms like I used to be, but that's a hot, popular subject that I know is going to get content creators. So I'm going to want to own some of that too. So I'm going to have to go compete with Litecoin Lisa on that one. She's sniping it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She went out and bought lore to vote for it, which is awesome. And so I'm happy to see her in there.
I think I'm pretty heavily in that one, but I don't remember. That one's an older one too. We've been waiting. Then there are two firearms ones.
There's a responsible gun owners, which was first, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Then there's a firearms one. So we got the irresponsible one. Oh well. Hyperfreak, if you're ready, drop us a line in private chat just to let us know that you're set up, and we'll bring you up in a minute. So yeah, do go vote on this. There's a whole list. There's 13 of them, I think. I'm either going to end up, I'm not committing this vote yet, but I'm either going to vote for anonymous posting, or I think my other one that I was on the fence about was show consensus as interesting. I like the proof reports and stuff. Oh, cross posting. That was my other one, because I end up manually typing in the words X post, and then I want a clean way to do that. So that might be the other one that I vote for. But yeah, if you want, don't go by what I'm not suggesting you do that. You vote for what you want. All right, so let me back out here again. Looks like our guest had some technical difficulties, so that's fine.
All right.
That's okay.
Well, it would be good if you come back, because if we want to talk about
Yeah,
that subject, it would be good. So
totally. I'll let you get set up there for a minute, sir, and then let's go back here real quick because I want to see. I didn't actually note what was winning and what wasn't, and that kind of thing.
yes.
As a reminder, we mixed up a little bit how the winners are chosen in the one category here. So there's going to be 3 winners. It'll be 2 by lore and 1 by unique voters. Is that right? Yeah. And then, up to 3 winners. And then the category of most lore, this is just basically ignoring how many people individually voted and just counting up the max, like whichever one wins in the most votes. But it won't be number 1. It'll be number 3 and number 5. So it's a little bit less easy to game the system. And you don't just default into having the same winner on number 1 on both ends, because with unique voters, everybody can see, okay, it's probably going to win. So I'll throw my lore into that, or the other way around. With let's say All Wrestling Entertainment is in number 5. It looks like it's going to win. People might throw in 1 single lore, so they have a single lot, because that gets you free edits if you just have 1, and it also gives you the ability to at least create a proposal and governance and weigh in and just signal what you think.
Right.
So a lot of people just give one lot just to have some kind of say in there, and when they do that, it increments the unique voters, and the same thing happens. Everybody piles into that, and then you get the same thing. 1 and 1 wins. So we did it first with 8 and 13, which gave us, further down the list with a lower total balance, which was interesting. But 3 and 5 worked last time. We're gonna do it again this week.
Awesome. I think I want to try to propose for like 3 and 13 or so, or some, some just the broader.
I mean, last time I bought one at place 43. Remember, it was
yes,
what was it? It was the tutorials layer. Yeah. Which I have started giving out lot to that. I think I gave somebody like 1,500 lot or something for making a good tutorial. So
that's awesome.
Go check that out. All right. Hyperion Frequency. Let's bring you up. Hello. Can you hear us all right?
I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I sure can. Fantastic. How you doing? Thanks for joining us.
Audio feedback? You guys aren't hearing yourselves, are you?
Slightly in the background every now and then, but it's not a problem, honestly.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
How you guys feeling today?
All right.
Thursday's busy for me, so I'm a little exhausted, but in a good way.
True. I watched about a half an hour of this morning's call that you guys did, and it was phenomenal already from what I've seen. I mean, the panel was amazing. It was absolutely
Yeah, I was glad to see Reggie was there and was like really a fun brain to pick. Yeah, totally. You know what? Let me scroll down. Where's the I had the priorities votes up. Here we go.
Yeah.
Because you weighed in with some really good stuff.
Thanks.
You weighed in with some really good ideas.
Yeah.
Let me bring that up so I can look at it too with you guys. I'm actually having some trouble with the app right now on my phone, where it's like the app doesn't open. So I tried to log in through the web browser, and because you log in through the web browser and you have the app, it tries to force you to open up the app, and so I can't use my phone at all to open up Den.
You know what it might be? There was a release, and I don't know. Like I couldn't get it synced on mine, but so I don't know if it's out globally or not. But there was a release, and the last release that was a mobile app, it would just spin. So I had to go in and blow out cache. It was either the application's data cache or the app data fully, and then just log in again. That's what I did. It works. So.
And on the phone app thing, I know I always have to make sure I click, because it gives you options: always open with this or just once. And I always have to click the just once thing, or I'll run into what you have, where any Den link that I click, it forces it. It doesn't even give me the option anymore. It just tries to open in the app. So you might actually go in and there might be like a default apps that you can reset, like default apps to open a link, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Look at the settings. I appreciate that, guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I replied to what you said a little bit. Joe did too, it looks like. And I figured we could talk about that here.
You guys were freaking awesome. Honestly, I had just really been thinking about like my biggest fear is that okay, Den lasts forever. That's my biggest fear. Den lasts forever. And then what do we do with that? Where are we going? What does it mean? How do we utilize this? How do we do what do we do to make it better for everyone so that we don't have the same economical issues, the same social issues, you know?
Yeah, I know what you mean. And it's a little bit of what I said. It was, thinking about, to be honest, a lot of the times I think about how to phrase things in a way that'll like get the attention of somebody that is like, I mean, I won't sugarcoat it. There's trends that happen around the cryptosphere and things like that. So whenever I see all these people being like, "Oh man, play to earn, that's the most amazing thing. Everybody should do that." I'm like, dude, right here, play to earn, play to earn, play. Look, it is literally. So sometimes I'll use terms that later on I'll go back and be like, well, maybe that's not the best way to pitch it. That kind of
I
thing.
don't know. Maybe
So-
play to earn would be a great way to pitch Den. I just don't like the whole like passive income kind of
Sure.
narrative this early on in its development, just because if you give people a chance to be lazy, they will be lazy. Period.
Yeah. And then the thing about and I need to, because I think I saw it at 1 a.m, and that's when I made that reply. But that the I want to go through your initial reply, because there's some stuff in there that I don't know if I hit upon, but of it, the main thing was trying to attack that issue of the behavior where, oh, I have the lot, now I'm not going to ever go back. And the point in having the lot is to incentivize you to build the community, either hire people to bring content in, or bring your own content in, or give your lot to people who are bringing good content in. And the issue is totally that if somebody gets lazy, then they're still earning matter just from holding that lot. And by the way, there is to talk about your actual described model. It's actually awesome. I love it. The thing I'm not certain of is whether people say, oh, but I got those lots, and and there is an issue with what is essentially inflation. It's not inflation in this case, but it's essentially a tax on what you're holding in your wallet, which is
Right.
a potential very negative thing.
And that's why that's what I kind of was thinking about primarily,
Now-
because I'm against moving, like I'm against redistributing assets that are
we
held.
say that.
But anyway, I'm not like 100% I can't be convinced. I'm
Yeah.
saying my initial thoughts are that goes against how I sort of think usually. But what's interesting is the lot has something else, which is the emissions, right? So it could be something totally different to say that there's some sort of behavioral based metric where your baseline emissions are either buffed or debuffed based on some sort of
and that's
thing.
what we
I mean?
And so and I want to tell you the distribution. So the redistribution essentially is what it is, because it's saying, oh, your lot is going away and it's going to the people who are active. We had a model that we intended to plug into Dragon, and it was called constant supply, where you would have a fixed supply, and to solve the issue that even Bitcoin has, where you don't know the actual supply because some of it's been lost. Significant amount of Bitcoin have been lost into dumps, into the lakes, into wherever people lose their keys, and there's no way to know if a particular balance in a wallet is literally gone forever, or if the guy's just sitting on it. He's like, I'm just not going to move it for right now, and that's economically not great, given what's possible. And so the intent of the model was called Ghost Dragons, where you would on the one side, when you're running a node, you would essentially be staking your dragons and your time, essentially running that node, which you do. But you would not only be competing for the fees that are in a moving system, but you would also be competing for the tokens that aren't being actively used, which essentially go away and come back over here. And the beauty there is, if number one, it incentivizes people to do whatever the things are that you want them to do. And number two, in the case that someone's actually lost them, they come to the people who are doing, which is just just an extra value, that and the beauty is then every time one of these periods, because it was supposed to be a Fibonacci curve, right? So you would have had a very slow uptick and then very quickly, if I think the tuning was like to 52 weeks. So if you didn't do anything for a year, your entire balance would be zero, right? Which is kind of scary and kind of crazy, but you could also come in as like, you know what, guys, I'm gonna have to shut down my node because I'm moving or something. So it's gonna be 2-3 weeks before. You could come in and sign a contract that you would not lose as much, or maybe you'd have a longer grace period because you actively said, I'm still doing stuff and I'm going to come back. So there's some of that type of thing that you could do. And that's why that was kind of attractive, because I'm like, you could do that. So, and with the DAO, we could say, oh, yeah, let's do it. Now, the second option was dilution by inflation of the lot. So which wouldn't be scalable because, if you have depending upon the amounts, I guess, it would be kind of hard to do because you'd have to keep pushing lore in.
See, now that's a model that we use in Gainesville, where since it's a business layer, not an LCP, there is not a hard cap on supply of those lot.
Right.
And so when somebody comes out and supports an event, they get a lot. And if they come back again the next time, they get a lot, and you get a token every time you do a thing that participates in the community, in meet space, that kind of thing. If you are someone who was like gung ho in the beginning, like a lot of people are, and they put in a bunch of flash work and get a bunch of credit, and then they step back and they don't do shit for years, well, you're going to get diluted out because you didn't keep showing up, you didn't keep getting credited with more, and so the inflation is literally done by the people getting paid out for doing what they're doing, and so that dilutes that has like an anti-whale effect when it comes to it dilutes the OG governance.
And it also for Roundtable, right? That was one of the things that when we set it up, one of the questions was, what if we get a big name that starts coming on the show regularly, right? That if it were not, how do I say this? If it were not based upon the views, then they would probably never come on, because they would just like, well, I'd be a minnow. I didn't come in early enough. All the, you guys all have, huge stake in that DAO. But with this, it means that, well, if I can bring in 500,000 views in a week, then I'm going to join, because I'm going to.
So here's a question that, based on that, let's say that is, for lack of a better term, really good whale bait, so that you can get people on your show, because that's what you want. You want interesting people on the show, so people come check it out, like as a business model or whatever. How do you advertise that? How do you market, like, oh, hey, whales, you can just show up, and because you're a whale, people will be like, oh my gosh, 123,000 people that follow this person on YouTube might come over and say, oh man, we're over here today. Cool. And then you get such a massive payout with that, because of like, you literally are part of who brought those in.
Yep.
I don't know how to market that. I'm not a marketing person.
So if we go back, the third option was burning, which is also possible, but there's a scalability problem there too, depending upon where the tokens are and other things. There's also the issue, one of the bigger issues that even was mentioned, is a lot that I'm holding on Ethereum versus inside, where we couldn't delete it on Ethereum anyway, right? So there's some interesting stuff there, but that's why that fourth option, where it would essentially attenuate your earnings the longer you were inactive, right? And so after a while, and the beauty is you haven't lost anything. You still have your lot ownership. You can still come in and vote, and now all of a sudden you're not inactive, and now you'll start earning back up. And I don't know if it would be what type of a drawdown curve it would be to zero, and fully inactive, versus how fast it would come back once you started being active. But I will tell you, the thing that I wasn't certain of when I first wrote that response was how to measure it, because you had said 100 energy kind of as the fee, and it makes sense. I think it would be a proportional share. Now the problem is the way if you did a proportional amount of energy, it sucks, because now someone who has a lot of energy can just take over all of the I'm just going to make sure I vote everything in this layer on some day that there's a high ranked post or something, which by that effect it would be that day. And the other side of it, though, would be we could measure it by the proportion of your total energy that you put in it. So if I have 100 energy versus 40,000 energy that you have, if we both put in half of our total energy into that layer, that's how it's competed. We could do that. I don't know.
Well, what about in the instance where, okay, somebody owns 20% of the lot, right? And in a given time frame, they only put forth maybe a total of 1% of the energy put into that layer, right? I mean, you can't own 20% of a layer and not have the energy or the matter to back that lot up with the lore up that you use to get that lot, right?
Yep.
So it's not like you'd be empty unless somebody gifted you the lore and gifted you the lot.
Yeah, if they gifted you the lot, it could you could have a bunch of lot, and that's why it's proportionally. I think I could see where you would say that if we said if there was 100,000 energy over a period, I don't know what, let's say on a single day, right? So 100,000 energy went into that, and if you own 20% of the lot, but you don't have enough energy to have put in 20,000 energy. That could be an issue, but if instead it was just look, let's say you're in only one community. Most of us are in multiple communities, but let's say you're in one, and so you're very intent that I want this community to be successful. You would say, if you own some of this community, I want you to put as much of your energy into this community and not those as possible. Right. So the people that own multiple would have to essentially, if you wanted to be most efficient, you would have to put more energy into the layers that are producing more matter in that competition. But you would have to basically split up your energy amongst all of those layers, because let's say I have some layer that I own a bunch of that there aren't even any posts today. So I'm not going to obviously put any energy there. Or let's say there's a post that there's only one other subscriber, and so not much matter is produced. It would be interesting, because I might say, okay, I'm not going to put any energy there, but I'm going to put it over here. Now, and that's because those layers are competing they already are competing for your energy, but this would be actually saying, well, Joe put 20% of his total energy, which let's say let's say I have 100,000 energy. So I put 20,000 into that, someone who put 100% of their energy in would actually fare better per lot. I might have more lot than them, but they might fare better matter production per lot than I would, because they put 100% of their energy into that layer. I don't know.
I actually think that would be a pretty good metric for us to start looking at in the future for individual look, having a metric where we can see at every 6 months to a year within that time frame where you were putting your energy at and which layers, because having a leadership board on this is going to be very important, and then having a kind of self-reference to where you're spending your time and energy is going to be important. That's how you're going to monetize yourself, your effort, your content. And then that cross posting is going to really be helpful with this, because if you create a successful post in a layer that you own, and it also gets sent to other layers, even if you don't own those layers and stuff like that, you're still making off of that. There's still people who are getting energy put into that, and that starts to become very helpful, because now you are adding energy or heat to your own layer. especially
Yep.
once it gets sent to other places. That stuff matters.
Yep. Exactly.
You could also attenuate it at the governance side to where, like, okay, you have this many lot, but maybe based on something, your lot, let's say you have 20%, right? But maybe each individual lot actually weighs in at 0.95% because you've lost a little bit of, like, you ain't been doing much, or, it's been 3 months. So now you weigh in at 0.6% per lot. And so your governance weight isn't as much, but then that wouldn't mean that it would have to shift towards. It's more complicated, I guess. You have to shift that towards people that are actively doing it. Maybe you shuffle the list of who's, like, top to bottom, not based on who holds the most lot, but who's, like, got the most relative ownership value based on the fact that you even evaluate your own posts. Maybe it could be anything, really. It could be not most energy. It could be like, are you even evaluating what is in the layer that you own? You don't have to vote a bunch of energy into it, but can you throw one in so that you weigh into the consensus or the quorum, that kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My whole thing is when I was trying to be very like clear as I was writing it, that I don't want this to be some kind of system that is punishing people because they can't put their energy everywhere. It's more about making sure that people are putting any kind of effort in, period, instead of no effort at all.
Right.
I agree with you there. I've been thinking more and more along the lines of, like, the system of punishments we live in that could maybe be redesigned as, and not on Den, but just in, real life, I guess,
it could be
like positive reinforcement instead of that, that kind of
it literally could be something where again, a Fibonacci scale, as time moves on, that let's say you don't come in today, there's either no detrimental effect, or maybe very, very tiny. Again, the next day, very small effect. The next day, a little bit bigger, but still not noticeable. But then we can tune that curve to say, at the end of 7 days or 10 days or whatever, that and maybe it's longer, but that you start to you have a 20% less effect, less matter mining for the same as you would, and it doesn't even matter how much energy. It's just that you haven't come in and voted or made a reply or a post or done any of the things. We don't care how much or how accurate or anything else, but we want you to come in there and do something.
Sounds like we're measuring relative relevancy is what it sounds like.
Maybe I don't know if it is literally just activity. How engaged are you with this community, and how do we measure that?
Like a kind of like measuring the amp, how much focus you're able to give into a specific direction, how much attention you are putting, even like, so I'm a streamer. I'm required to stream anywhere from 6 to 10 hours a day. And I mean, that means that I might not be able to spend every single day on any other social media. Even if I only spend half a month just checking the app relatively every so often, right? At least I'm coming in, I'm logging in, I'm participating, I'm doing what I need to do, And as the features increase, people are going to have a much more fluid experience with the app. They're going to be able to click things. It's going to be a lot faster. It's going to be a lot easier to navigate. So like we're going to have to like take all of these. It's just not one thing. I know it's like it's going to be very complicated, but not necessarily like hard. It's just like you have to really look at all the points.
Right. That to me is, there's the building it out's complicated, but like hashing it out is really the important part, is making sure that you have a solid foundation to build on. Like, okay, here's the goal. Here's what we want to achieve, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and a big part of that too, that we've tried, and from the beginning, we had to do, I think, multiple iterations at the start, especially when we integrated the tokenization side. That originally the devs made it very much, it's Web3, it's all MetaMask, you have to, and we're like, no, like I want grandma to be able to come over from Facebook and say, oh, I can use this, and then when they say, wait a minute, I have $200, then, and that's a crypto thing. It's like all of a sudden now they have a reason to go through the process, which is normally a very ugly thing. If you're trying to get into a system, it's like, I don't want to do that. I don't even know if I like this. But in this case, you're like, well, I'm going to do that ugly stuff because there's $200 there.
That's kind of what I was getting at when I was said, like, instead of trying to say, hey, you can pull money out of this, you can earn passive income, you can profit personally, you can do this and that. Really, it's like, okay, we have the ability to build something that is at least just as useful as other social media sites out there, and it's built in a way that is not predatory on the people that are using it. And that's the primary thing to me. And the money is like a super, like, that's a great happy side effect. That's not my intent.
It's an interesting thing because a lot of people, especially early on, misunderstood, that we were shown a white paper. There's some formula. Here are all these details. Why? So that it's transparent. You could go, and there's the difference. You could come in and use the site and enjoy the fact that it's actually a largely polite community across the board. It's like there's so little drama in Den, and it's not as big as it will be, but it's still, even for this size, I'm surprised at the lack of drama. Typical.
Even the drama I've ended up becoming like friends with them. People will talk to you, even if they hate what you're saying, they'll engage.
And by the way, most of the drama we have had has been around fundamental rational discussions. It hasn't been about, oh, you're a whatever.
Which is great.
So, but the weird thing is, you can come in at that level, and you can just do, and you can evaluate, and you can even earn and whatever else. It's just when you go to the next level, if you decide to do so, you can look and say, well, wait a minute, I want to become a better evaluator. How are they measuring this? I'm going to look at the white paper. I'm going to say, oh, it means if I look at the stuff instead of living in the trending feed, if I'm going to go to the timeline feed, then I get content immediately when it comes out. And if I evaluate that right in a way, and it's a prediction market, now all these things that are, those are just tools, information, and
you get to learn these tips and tricks that it doesn't change. Well, it might change how you use it, but like, for example, a lot of people probably don't know that the replies, that all the conversation that happens underneath your post, a portion of the rewards or the energy applied goes to the OP, goes to your post. So if you create a conversation that spurs a really energy rich environment in that conversation, the original post is actually getting some credit for starting that conversation, which means you can go in and evaluate the conversation in your own post. You can't vote on your own post, but if you go in and evaluate posts within your own posts, a part of that's getting kicked back up to yourself.
Yeah, you're incentivized to give energy to the people replying, which incentivizes them to reply. And the fact that you're getting all the fees based upon all that incentivizes you to create a general bit of content that will hopefully engage users to have a back and forth. There were a few people that were pretty brilliant and would post stuff about Apple versus or iPhone versus Android, and then get all of that discussion going and just make a ton of
perfect. Do that. And if you're an evaluator, that was kind of a content creator tip. If you're an evaluator, I'll give a tip for that too. I still think that the chat rooms, layered chat, since we've gotten that in place, is the best place to hang out as an evaluator, because you get to see, it could be up on a second monitor or something. And if you know that you're a really good judge of content, like I know these layers and what they're going to like, then if you hang out in chat, the posts that people put in the layers actually show up in line in the chat room as if somebody chatted it. So you can see as posts come in immediately, you can see something come in. And so without having to refresh your browser to see if there's anything new, you can be the first person to evaluate it. Now you got to be right. You're right. You can't just go in and vote it up or vote it down or whatever. You got to be correct, because people are going to come in and vote after you, and you're not going to get rewarded for just, I mean, you will if you happen to roll the dice and it's right, I guess. Right. But there's all kinds of stuff like that where, if you think about the way that I like to think about it most is that there's a bunch of jobs that needs to be done. And it's almost like a task list. And here's the rewards for all these tasks that we need daily tasks done. And if you would like to perform those tasks, here's the rewards associated with them, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and one of the other more interesting points too, related directly to what Dave just said, is that you might not actually have an affinity with that community. You know, it might be a layer that is focused on socialism, and you might be a total capitalist, but if you know what they will like, then you can be a good evaluator. And so it's an interesting thing because it's just a behavior. It's, you know, and frankly, the people who are all about socialism, if you are getting them to post, they don't care what your beliefs are. They want to see that content. So yeah.
I think that I really like the way that Dave phrased it when he was talking about that there's tasks and tasks need to be done. Because I commented earlier back on the post, and I wanted to make sure that we didn't lose the part where I was trying to reward owners and curators who are actually participating openly with inside these layers, right? So I'm thinking like, okay, so if we're diminishing the value that these absent owners are of their lot, so they're not getting the MTR that is being accumulated, right? Instead of just throwing it back into the pooling, just giving it to whoever, allowing that to kind of accumulate, and then over that period of time, rewarding the people who were the most productive inside of those layers, outside of having successful content. Because for people who are content creators, it's going to be easier. For people who are commenters, it's going to be very easy for them to try and accumulate more matter. But the people who are strictly only want to upvote or downvote things, who are there to make sure that the tags are appropriate and stuff like that, they still deserve to be able to receive an amount of MTR in one way or another, outside of feeling like they have to create nonsense posts. You know, we don't want people to just comment to feel like they have to.
And that's something that's true that may not be very apparent as well.
Yeah, because right now the whether it's the original post or a reply, you know, they get a cut of things in the thread below them. But if let's say a reply gets a lot of energy and good consensus, it can earn more than the post. But you know, the post is going to get a cut of that reply, you know, because it's down below. But I think to answer that, because I just saw it before we came on to your newer comment, that I think it wouldn't have to be set aside. I think you would. Now I don't know at this point what the formula would be, but that essentially if one, let's say you have just two owners maybe as an example, and they have the same amount of lot. One is active, and so let's just say they're ranked at 100, however that's measured. The other has been inactive for a period of time, and whatever it is, that I think it would be proportional, that as it is attenuated, that energy that would have normally gone to the owner of those lots of an account that is inactive would instead be distributed proportionally, as if it was so the layer itself wouldn't lose that energy and therefore that matter. It would just go to the people who actually were active. So it'd be kind of
could even go into the trending pool or something.
Well, I wouldn't do that, because then it's going to go site wide, where that energy came into
in the
this
layer
community. It should be inside of that layer, and you already have all those lots, and you can say, let's say everybody else is active daily, so they're getting full. There's no effect to them, but the holder that is inactive, essentially their matter goes from fully accounted for down to zero, at which point, you know, and all of the matter that they would have earned had they been active will instead go to the ones that were active. So it's just a shift there.
So the other ones might be getting 103% of their typical. Yeah.
So I have a question. So in the long-term effect, is it better to have pools associated with layers that have accumulated a certain amount of like matter or lore or a lot that isn't necessarily being immediately distributed? Or is it better to try and get that out to people as soon as possible?
See, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that, because it could also go to a treasury. It could go to a layer treasury. or something, which
Yeah,
has a
but
whole
then-
nother system of like governance implications. But yeah, I don't know. I hadn't thought about it.
But
I
then
was assuming
would
immediate
when would it
distribution.
be, and how would it be? That's why, I mean, if you're doing I would prefer immediate, because then it's just like, oh, we attenuated over here, so it went over there.
And then you don't get into a fight about what to do with the bag of treasury matter
Yeah,
or whatever.
It's just,
Yeah.
you know, you still would want. In fact, you might even, you know, let's say that there is a layer that has 1 million lot, which is kind of a high amount, and you hold 5% of that, right? Now, let's say the holder who holds 50% of that layer all of a sudden goes inactive. You know, your 5% is acting like 10% in matter earnings, just because half of the lot is inactive. So it, you know, it becomes more valuable per share. I mean, we'd have to figure out how we would count for that when we have the layer metrics page. You know, I don't know if that's
I
accounted
keep
for.
thinking about video games on this, and I keep thinking about you're a streamer, so video games, is that what you're streaming?
No, I don't do video game streaming.
okay.
We do like I talk a lot about like sociology and psychology.
Okay.
And stuff.
Awesome.
A lot of one-on-one.
Well, that makes sense to me. I was thinking video games, and I was thinking that it's super common, especially in MMOs and stuff, to have daily quests, your dailies. You log in, you get a thing, and if you don't use that little perk within that day, though, you can't just keep it. It depreciates, it erodes, it goes away, that kind of thing. And I like the way the discussion's going here, because it's all about, you know, how do you get people to engage, stay engaged, go grab a little bit of lot, because then I'm going to stay engaged, and maybe I only have one, but I know this other person who has a lot of it is lazy. So I want to get in here and be active, because they're going to go to sleep. They do it every time, you know, that kind of thing. To sort of like spur that sort of what I love and what I want to have is something that is complex enough to be interesting, simple enough to use, but it allows, that complexity allows people to develop personal strategies on how to operate. That's to me where the magic happens, because that keeps them engaged more. If they have their own mojo and like, oh, I have some secret sauce, I do this, this, and this. It works for me because of my pattern of life, you know, my daily routine. You know, that's where complexity is engaging. You know, as long as it's not too overwhelming, it can really be something that like holds interest with people.
Yeah.
So my last point that I kind of wanted to touch on was the public domain aspect of Den.Social. And so let's talk about the fact that, okay, so we can have a layer that has 10 owners and it has 100,000 lot, right? And 7 of those owners are no longer active, right? Because we were just talking about the treasury aspect, just as an idea. We're just going to conceptualize this really quick, okay? So what happens when those 3 lot owners no longer want to they can't dump it. They have this lot and nobody wants to buy it, right? So if we did have this internal treasury, right, where instead of having to vote necessarily about where it's going, you could just sell your lot to the layer itself, and then you can cash out with MTR, right? And then that way, that layer, if it dies, if it stagnates, you're no longer associated with that, you know?
That's interesting. Yeah, that's possible. I wanted to point out though, you can actually go burn your lot and get a portion of your lore back to reuse for something.
Oh, because there's a lore inside of the lot, right?
You get, I think 50, is it 50%? You get half your lot back, or there's some ratio. I don't know. Maybe it's more than that. Yeah,
it might be.
There is
that
as a caveat.
Portion, but part of it goes to the layer, part of it goes to Den. I just can't. I thought
right,
it was.
Yeah. You don't get all of it back.
10%
Some of it
goes to the layer of the and it gets spread, and 5% goes to Den, maybe something like that. I think
I haven't looked at it since.
I can't remember. I might be wrong.
Since
it was a while ago.
What's his name? Fellow Floridian. Anyway, somebody rage quit and burned all their lot, and we were like, "Oh, it works, cool." That does work.
Yeah, so that's doable. When we put in that's the thing. I guess when we put in that, here's my question: if if you have 70% of that lot sitting there doing nothing, and you have 30% where you have some people active, that is why, frankly, that your number one option where they lose their lot is very attractive, because otherwise you're going to have interesting things where the 30% that are active can put any governance proposal in, but it takes a full week because there's no way for them to get over 50% of a vote, right? Now we can put different expirations on it. We've talked to people about that, to have a quorum of at least, whatever they set. And then the DAO, that layer itself can decide, okay, our quorum is 15%, because generally that's what we see when everybody weighs in who cares, right? Because it's typically a lot lower than.
That would actually potentially solve an issue I have in Gainesville too, where I went ahead and pre-minted or pre-made all the lots. I've been giving them out, and if I allow the account that's holding them to go dormant, then the people that have less than 0.01% would suddenly get a meaningful payout if I allowed the holding account to go dormant,
or if you burned them,
or if I burned them. I could burn them.
That's a pretty interesting way to look at it. See, that was different than the way that I was looking at it. You're looking at it at literally the exact opposite way. So if you have an account that holds most of the lot, and then they go dormant, and instead of receiving the MTR just because they own it and stuff like that, now the people who are participating in it can actually receive a larger amount. That would be very beneficial to them, right?
The reason I like that is it doesn't piss off the people who are like, why are you taking my tokens? These are my tokens, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's just the issue. Like, say we have a solution on the business side. If you come in and create a business layer, it already, there's a premium. It costs you a lot more than free on LCP, right? But you have full control. Then you have a couple of the features, and you will. In time, we haven't turned it on yet, but you will have a monthly, I think it's monthly, weekly, daily, something lore cost. So you will be charged. You'll have to have a funded wallet with enough lore in it. And there'll be a base cost. But if you rank high enough, and we don't know what it would be, let's say you're in the top so many layers by matter production or by engagement, then at the very top, you'll pay nothing. Right. And, maybe the, first few positions there, if you can rank your layer there, you don't pay anything monthly or daily or whatever. And that's anti-squatting, essentially. So if I come in and I grab a layer just for the name and then don't do anything with it, well, you're going to pay for it. Right. But with LCP, there is not that facility to charge monthly for all the lot holders. So the question then is, with that 70% sitting there, it's there forever, I assume. We could potentially put in an option to let people fork a layer and say, hey, we either disagree with those guys who, disagree with the way we want to move it. So we want to take all of our lot. We're going to group together and make a new layer. Maybe there's some cost. And then also, if those guys are totally inactive, these people are not voting on anything, they're totally inactive, we're going to take our 30% and pull it over here and make, that's the full supply on a new layer.
Or even more than that, you could do, I had never thought of forking a layer. I thought about, okay, go create a new layer because this one's not ending up with the community you thought it was going to be. But if you fork a layer, you could actually take the inactive accounts that aren't participating. And that could be a new round of, hey, we're forking. Who wants to be part of the fork? We are on the new fork. We're actually going to have the same lot supply, but the percentage of inactive ones are now going to be up for grabs if somebody wants to get in on the new layer. And then if you existed on the first layer before it forked, obviously, if you're one of the active ones, you get just like if Bitcoin forked. If you already had a Bitcoin wallet, you would now have your lot on one that they forked off from, and then you would additionally have the lot that are the new different.
Yeah, that would be worth talking about. That'd be super interesting. I don't know if we have anywhere right now that it would apply, but
thinking about it, so since we're on this idea, you got what timeout?
No. Merges also the opposite of forks. You could say, oh, the NFT and NFT art layers are pretty much the same thing. Why don't we freaking get them all together?
Right.
Anyway, sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
So since we're talking about the idea of forks, so for example, we can talk about the Indian layer, right? When we start having these national layers that people are going to want to put lore into so that they can have a lot, because they know that these are going to be active layers, but they don't necessarily participate in themselves and stuff like that. This is when we start getting into, okay, there's people who just put into it so that they can make off of it, but didn't do anything, and they can't participate. They don't understand what's happening. They the culture is different and stuff like that. And maybe, hey, you know what? It was a good idea for them to get into it in the beginning, and later they just realized that they didn't have the time or the energy to put into it. So forking in this instance wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea, right?
Dude, and even like, and I just thought of something else, is if you are going to take, X number of dormant and then in the new fork redistribute those, and maybe that's a way to pull in some initial capital. I don't know what's going on with the fork, but you could even restrict who's eligible to get in on the new fork by reputation metrics and stuff like that.
Well, the other side of it though is if we didn't, there might be legal risks even with if you had the 70% that the 700,000 that now we're going to sell them. It's a weird.
I was strictly thought experimenting. And
I totally no, it's just brilliant.
I don't know what's allowed.
But if we it could be just as simple as open source projects forking, where 3 of the team members go over and create this because that's what they want to focus on, and 7 of them stay over here and keep working on this, or maybe they're totally inactive, and that's why there is an incentive for those 3. If you aren't active enough, we're just going to leave you behind. We're going to roll over here. Now, then there's a question, how do you, it's like, oh, I want to join too. And it's like, no, you're not welcome. You aren't. I don't know how that side works.
Well, maybe a more fair and clean way to do it then would be to take those, instead of being binary, be a gradient of like, your like your relative participation dictates your supply in the fork. You don't choose your supply. Your behavior chooses what you get in the new fork.
That could be, and it could be something where maybe the fork is a DAO proposal, and anybody who votes on it has the ability to say, well, I have 50,000. I'm coming with you guys. You guys are active, right? And the guy who's not active doesn't see it. I don't know. That's a question, but they don't lose anything. They still have their original layer.
I feel like we're onto something here that once we talk about it a few more times, that it'll this is something that I could see ending up in that list on the feature prioritization list.
Yeah,
because it's
but definitely this would
well, something in this conversation is good.
I think it should be in there, because I do agree, because I know that I have to actively. Sometimes I won't see it, like history. I'm a history buff. I love looking at history stuff, but sometimes I don't see the posts. When I do, I tend to probably vote them up pretty well, because I want to incentivize those people to keep posting stuff in the history layer. And that's the whole point of it, right? To make sure that you have that focus in those communities. And yet I know that I have some lot that I often don't participate in, because I might not go to that layer itself and look at the feed instead of just the base feed. So I might miss stuff.
Yeah, like I usually check into gaming, but I don't usually check into the Donald, for example. But I made sure I had some Donald, because I'm like, oh well, that's like a community that'll get like a lot of content probably, so I want to be on the thing. But I'm also a stagnant, dormant, non-active user over there. So fair is fair. Yeah, I'm not participating. Fork off. Yep. I won't be there.
And maybe it would be something that the DAO could decide that it would be not a 100% to 0. Maybe it reduces. Maybe it's an attenuation down to 20% of what you. So you're always still getting something, but it's.
I mean, my whole thing is there's still value in holding a lot in a community that you don't necessarily always participate in. You get free edits, you get to vote in on things. So it's not like you no longer, it's like it makes it useless or anything like that. Right. It just means that we got to really talk about these kinds of things.
Yeah, you can turn off rewards on a particular layer without turning off the ability to propose, new governance proposals, vote on them, and even to evaluate other content. You might not get paid out your rewarded for that evaluation the same way, but you can still evaluate, stuff like that.
Right.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
That was really good. Really good.
Great guy.
What do I say? The thought, it was a somewhat thought experiment, but the description of the process was really helpful, because it's like, yeah, I'm totally on board with it. That's not an area that we had focused. It was brilliant. So thanks for putting that in. It's awesome. Right.
Yes, sir.
Really appreciate you guys.
Now, my next question on your streaming, I have no idea what you talk about, right? But maybe you could have your subject or your interviewee playing a video game, and you can psychoanalyze them based upon that play. Sorry.
I'll be a guinea pig for that one. I'll definitely be when I've already decided, and I've already told my wife that when Starfield comes out, I'm taking off. Joe, I'm telling you now, I guess I'm taking off a week. I won't be doing the coffee show. I'll do the coffee show, but I won't be on some others. Maybe not here. I'm going to play Starfield for like a solid week, and then you can psychoanalyze me while I geek out on my favorite franchise and game developers' new IP.
I think you should participate in the shows just while playing. So
yeah.
While you're talking,
I can do that. Yeah, I'll just be honest about it, and I'll need somebody else to be like, "Hey, take over for a minute," and then I'll just like, "Okay, he's dead." What? Oh, awesome! This is great. This is a great meeting. Thanks for coming on the call. We got through everything we wanted to talk about, and we even got to talk about what we were already talking about in the prioritization vote, right? So I have not read everything in that yet, so I'll go through and finish reading that. And I've chimed in once. I'll probably chime in here and there where I see it. And I wanted to say thanks to everyone who has. I've noticed, like, I don't know, everyone's awesome. I just wanted to send out some kudos to everybody. So I appreciate everybody. And there are other shows that happen on Den every week. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is the meat of it. We have Super Happy on Tuesdays with Dragon Chain and Den.Social updates. We have the coffee show at 9 a.m. Eastern on Wednesday every morning, which is a very casual, like, sometimes we literally just go and see what's trending on Den and talk about it. So if it's on Den, it's on topic. And that's another one where anybody's invited to come on the show and chat and hang out.
I think you need to make you need a DAO vote to move the time up so that I could come on sometime.
Yeah. Special edition. We'll do a special edition. Well, actually, I think we've decided we're going to end up doing a business layer. We're going to do a B2B for the coffee show, because this week was the 34th episode, so 34 weeks strong. Looks like we're going to keep doing it, and I really like the blockchain roundtable model of giving people that participate ownership, giving them a lot. And since we have reliably every week, we have people chiming in with topics and questions and stuff, I think it's appropriate to apply the same model that we see working into another layer. That's awesome. So that's coming. And then Thursdays, there's World Blockchain Roundtable, which is a curated panel discussion on topics that are presented or suggested by the community and voted on by the community, which then rolls into this meeting. And this is this is the meeting, not the show, which everybody's able to come on and talk about like we did just now.
Which, so by the way, no one has written about World Blockchain Roundtable as a DAO. So it is a show about crypto and blockchain that uses blockchain and crypto to govern itself and to reward all. I mean, it's like, I don't know why no one's written about that outside of. Anyway, whatever.
No, it's great, because think about, not to go off on a tangent, since we've got stuff to do today and all that, but think of all of the platforms that their entire business is blockchain or crypto, but they don't use any of the tech.
Yeah.
Right. They don't use the exchanges, like anything, Coinbase, like anybody that does shit. I don't even know. But nobody.
It annoyed the crap out of me when I.
That's why I was so impressed with Bixie. Bixie got it and was like, "Oh, we need to prove our books with the very thing that we're selling to people." And you're like, "Oh yeah, you use the tech that you're engaging in, stuff like that."
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anyway,
the fact that you could walk up, you could walk up at the blockchain, the premier blockchain conference in the world, and they ask you for your name. It's like, oh yeah, I'm Vitalik.
You don't even do that. Like you don't even do that at like DEF CON. You know what I mean? Much less like a crypto crowd. You know, it's like it's cash only in Vegas every year at DEF CON. Why isn't it the same way?
Well, given number go up, I'm surprised they don't
cypherpunk
ask you
meetings.
for your balance. It's like, what's your balance of Ethereum? Since it's like you have to. Sorry.
Proof of stake to get in. If you don't hold enough in the proof of stake mechanism, then you don't count and you don't get to come to the meeting.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Cool. Well, let's wrap it up, I guess. Thanks again, Hyperfreak. Welcome to come on and chat with us anytime, because like I said, you're another brain that is valuable to pick, and I appreciate you letting us do it and offering it up. So let's see. I've given reminders, and look into DAOs. Maybe there's something that you're doing right now that could be better as a DAO. So that's all I'll say. Anything else as we sign out of here?
I think I'm good.
You guys are great. Thanks for hanging out today, guys. You guys be safe.
Man.
Smart choices.
You too. Come back. Welcome back. All right.
Absolutely. All right. See you next time. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best.
Adaptable, raw capital, label radical yet rational. A tactical approach is palpable if this animal is fallible, but that conclusion is laughable. So with for all detachable from the mandible, you see it now.